Thank you all so much for being here. It's always lovely to see you. It's quite the highlight for us when we get to have our parents with us, because I think you always help us to really understand how the work that we're doing is impacting. So really appreciate that you're here. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Ronnie McFarlane, who is our Director for the Inclusive Teaching and Learning Directorate. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everyone. It's always really lovely to see some familiar faces returning each time, and now this is my third opportunity to come to the forum, and it's something I really look forward to each term, even though I do get put in the naughty corner. And at the end, I'll remind you, there is a list up there. If you want to come and have a one-to-one chat with me, please pop your name up on the list so that we can get through everybody today. I would also like to acknowledge that we do meet on Kaurna land, and it is wonderful. We had Jamie present to our whole staff this week, and people are still talking about it. It's really, really important for us to think about in all our work the diversity of the community which we serve, and obviously our Aboriginal children and young people are a critical part of that, and we need to make sure that we are developing our own cultural awareness as well as across our system. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. One of the things that's really, really lovely is to always work with people who are really supportive of our work, and Natalie Atkinson is our Executive Director for Support and Inclusion, so my boss, and she oversees inclusive teaching and learning, which is my directorate. We use lots of language in the department, but also student support services and engagement and wellbeing. So it is really, really fortunate that when you are working in government, that you have people who really, truly care about the work that we do every day, and I'm really fortunate to have Natalie. Natalie is here today, so she's going to be wandering around the groups and having chats, and so if you're wanting to, catch her at any point in time, I'm sure she'll move around. So just wanted to, she's down here in the white shirt. Got her hair up today. So I'm just giving a little brief update today, and hopefully I will pop around to the tables and be part of the discussions. But I guess in terms of the things that we've achieved or has happened since the last time we met, just wanted to acknowledge that the team that I'm really fortunate to work alongside are working really, really hard every day to make improvements across disability across South Australia. Autism Inclusion Teachers is a huge initiative, and we know that it's just a start, but from a point of election to actually having Autism Inclusion Teachers in over 423 schools is really an incredible achievement, and I know we'll get an opportunity to hear a lot about that today, and I'm just going to highlight some things. But also the fact that over 400 teachers, educators have been trained in face-to-face training by Positive Partnerships. Again, it's a massive achievement for the team. I'm really, really proud of the work that Anna has led in that space. Another thing, and I know that last time we talked about practice guidance, but we have 9 new practice guides released. We are continuing consultation in regards to the autism strategy, and I'm sure many of you have potentially participated in those forums over the little period from when it was released. And the other thing that we've had is really fortunate to have hosted Professor Barry Carpenter. So I'm just going to go into a few of those little things. We are in a really, really challenging situation as a system in terms of making sure we've got staff, teachers in front of our children, and especially in regional remote communities. The fact that we are almost at 100% of our primary schools, our special schools, and our birth to 12 or out of 12 schools, our combined schools, with an autism inclusion teacher. Really passionate, interested people putting their hands up to be involved in something that hasn't happened before. Sometimes that's really scary to be a part, to put your hand up for things. That is really, really impressive. I know that the team, and they'll talk about it, about the nature of those people who are wanting to learn, and some of their feedback that they've provided early on has been just heartwarming and really, really pleasing. So that is an incredible achievement. In terms of our practice guidance, so we previously released all of the ones on the left-hand side of the screen in August last year, and the 9 on the right side of the screen have been released just a few weeks ago. So they are available to our educators in schools in terms of the fact sheets in a folder, and they're also available online, and you can access them via our external website, and a longer version so our staff, our teachers can access them in a deep form. We have had significant hits and they continue to be accessed by our educators across our system in high rates. It is the most engaged with page on Eddie, which is our internet, than anything else that we publish in the department. So the fact that teachers are seeking more information, it just demonstrates that they're really, really trying to learn new things and apply new skills. And this means that we need to continue to work in this space. Part of the work that we will do to try and make that accessible to schools and to educators is try to understand how schools are using them. So a piece of our work around practice guidance is actually the team going out and seeing how site leaders are referring to them, how teachers are using them. And next week we're actually out in Port Lincoln for a few days, and this will be part of our work exploring what's happening in regional areas in regard to using these and referring to them and applying them in the classroom. Since we last met, the autism strategy the consultation has completed. So just an update, obviously there's 2 major parts of that completed, and we continue to work with Department for Human Services in the department to make sure that we are aligning our piece of work with the strategy and the outcomes of the strategy, and also how the charter will be rolled out across our system. So with education piloting that first, which will come later in the year. So I will hopefully have, next time we meet, next term, lots more information, and there'll be lots of public information available about what's happening with the Autism Charter. We were really, really fortunate to host Professor Barry Carpenter just 2 weeks ago at the Convention Centre. So you can see there we had the Minister, we had the Assistant Minister, and we had a room full of people. In fact, we're really fortunate because Professor Carpenter is world-renowned. He has published lots of books, you can see that up in the corner. He is a Fellow of Oxford, he has chaired significant amounts of organisation and boards. But for us, it's really special because he provided lots of advice around our 5 practice guides that were related to autism and fetal alcohol. In particular, for us, as we continue to learn about the impact of autism on girls and the, lack of diagnosis in terms of identification early and what that means for us in working with young girls in particular who are yet to be diagnosed with autism and understanding how autism presents in those situations. He was able to not only engage with a room full of people, but in a way that when he responded to questions, whilst he has lots of letters after his name and more than you could fit on a screen in terms of, the exemplary things, he's an OBE and all sorts of things, but he engages with our staff from an educator perspective because he was a teacher in a classroom, a principal in a school, and really understands what is happening in the space as well as the most recent research. These are the 3 topics he covered, and they're really closely interrelated. So the fact that we know that for our neurodiverse community, that mental health is a significant factor that we need to be mindful of and consider and need to actually understand the emerging evidence. So he provided a lecture on mental health and neurodiversity, which covered ADHD and autism as well. Specifically, he did a lecture on girls and autism to raise awareness around the implications for that in that space. And the last one, because he's a leading expert, he talked to us about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which are often what we would have hoped in the past is that potentially with raised awareness that we would see less and less of this, but in fact we now know through statistics that it's not reducing at all. The best part of this was we had over 400 people in the room, and these were, our AITs had priority to this space, so if they were able to access to come into town and be available for that, they were in the room, as well as our special educators in student support service and existing staff, our staff, and broader educators from across our system. We also provided it online because we know, with our autism inclusion teachers in particular, they're in regional or remote areas and travelling into the cities is a barrier to their access to professional learning. So we had over 200 people online. But even better, we've recorded those sessions and they'll be available, so we'll be able to see the engagement and also people returning. So we know that through the feedback, a lot of people said, when will it be online? Because I want to revisit those ideas. Because when you're in a room, obviously, we're writing down our thinking and referring to things that they've said, but always great to be able to revisit those. So that's really exciting for us. Even better, we asked the question, like, what does this actually mean for the series? Because often coming and hearing an expert speak in lectures, taking that back and thinking about how that applies to your own thinking and your own learning. And what we have obviously there is a high level of engagement saying this has helped me think, more about the work I'm doing. It's around deeper learning in terms of my context. And given that we had a range of people, from people with exposure to these ideas in inclusive ed spaces and special education spaces, as well as newly appointed AITs who maybe haven't had significant exposure outside of their positive partnerships training, we thought that was a pretty good result, given that it's just three topics across those lectures. The other thing we asked was, okay, what more? What now? What else would you like to know about? And so people were able to go, well, I actually want to know more about neurodiversity. So this is helping us to think about what's the next opportunity we design for our educators in South Australia. So it's a real focus on how do we build awareness, how do we allow people to engage with strategies and skills to meet the needs of our student and children's community. The other thing that we've been engaging with is the Disability Royal Commission. Obviously that's been happening over a long period of time, and the findings and the report will come out later in the year, but the Disability Royal Commission has been providing lots of information as we go. And so one of the things that we're doing as a director and as a department is having a look at what does this actually mean for us? The work that we're doing, is it consistent? Are we focusing on the right things? What do we need to focus more on? What will the Royal Commission likely encourage us and support us to do? And these 5 things are really good for us because they give us some structure to think about what are we going to focus on. So when the first point there says they're investigating around sort of structures and organisations, that actually means what is the underlying policy and how is it inclusive and how does it drive inclusion across our system. The staff piece is key to us because it's talking about how we build capability across our workforce. How do we make sure we're targeting the things that are most important now to meet the needs of our children and young people? The peer piece is really interesting as well because it's talking about all those elements of bullying, harassment. What does it feel to belong? How do we make sure that when a child with disability goes into a school, that they can build relationships that matter, that they feel trusted and accepted, that they feel they've got agency in decision making. So that again for us is a key driver. The spaces is a little bit more challenging in terms of, we know that our physical environments are often a barrier, but how can we start to plan for really, really inclusive universal design of our environments? And the objects are the things that we are producing, those resources that are going to help access for our children and build the capacity of our teachers to be able to make adjustments in a really timely fashion. I often talk about capability, building knowledge, understanding and skills, and capacity meaning that actually have time and space to be able to do these things. How do we marry those up so that they're really effective? So they're the sorts of things that we've been busy at work with. Like I said, if you have an opposition to the smell of rubber, you might want to reconsider because it does smell like a lot of latex and all sorts of things in that room. But please put your name. I would love to talk to as many people as possible. I'm going to pop around to each of the tables while we engage in our next session. But if there is something that you would like, to have a one-on-one discussion with, please pop your name up there and I'll be really happy to have a chat. So thank you, everyone. And remember, Nat here will pop around as well. So thank you. And I'm going to hand over to Amanda.
Thank you. I'm just going to give you a very brief update on where we're at with the Autism Inclusion Teacher Initiative. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on Kaurna land and that we're very excited to have Jamie on board as part of our team in terms of working with our autism inclusion teachers and raising their awareness for our students with autism, Aboriginal students in particular, the importance of connecting and understanding their culture and connecting with Aboriginal communities. So thank you, Jamie, for all that you're doing in that space and teaching us all as we go along. As Ronnie said, we have 422 AITs, which we are incredibly excited about, and they are representing 427 of our primary schools. So again, very exciting, and what an incredible achievement. So where we're at in relation to the initiative is we have, as I said, established and nominated 422 AITs. We have set up the support network based on partnerships, the department's partnerships and portfolio model. We have 14 networks that are being overseen or led by the AIM team, who you'll meet in a minute, and the senior advisors here at SERU. We have recommended the training that's come from the research that will be rolled out over the next 3 years, and that training involves managing environmental factors to decrease student anxiety, school connectedness, peer-to-peer support, understanding behaviour, supporting unique social communication, and targeting academic enabling behaviours. There's also some additional modules that will sit alongside of those, and we're really excited that our first one will be ready to be rolled out to our AITs next term, and that is around understanding and reading professional reports. We also now have our multi-D team on board, which is exciting also, and we had the psychologist join us last week, so all positions in our field, so we're very excited about that, and you'll meet the team in a minute. As Ronnie said, the foundational training has been provided to all AITs. We have 2 more catch-up sessions, and unfortunately one of those was cancelled due to extreme weather over in Elliston on the west coast, so that will roll out early next term. As I said, there are other modules being developed as we speak to complement the network and the AIT engagement. Ongoing evaluation and tracking, how we're managing that and how we're going to report on that. Leaders are connected through their own team space, making sure that AITs, their network space is a safe place for them to share. We also, last night, Bronnie and I had our very first special educator network meeting, so that was the feedback from that has been really good. And connecting with them is also an important part of the initiative, because we'll work alongside of them, train them. They'll get the same training as the autism inclusion teachers do, and then we're looking at how we can utilise their skills and expertise in perhaps coaching model, and we'll look at rolling that out next year. Obviously still connecting, all the work that we do, we're connecting with the autistic community and autism community connections, and obviously we've spoken about the importance of having Jamie on board. This is feedback from the teachers that have already completed the positive partnerships, and we have had 400, it's here somewhere, 400 and, where is it? 427 educators have already completed that training. So that is alongside not only the AITs but also the special educators. Things that have come from that feedback, it's great to hear from a variety of professionals, including the lived experience. The resources provided were useful and easy to access. The training was engaging and practical. A wonderful workshop, great information. Positive partnerships provided engaging, practical learning that gives the knowledge and tools to effectively work with staff, students, and importantly, families. This was the feedback that we received from positive partnerships from the educators that attended the 2-day workshops. So you can see that the grey there is strongly agree. Strongly agree. The blue is strongly disagree. And what have we got? Most of the responses, as you can see, sit in the grey. So the feedback overall was generally really, really positive. Educators were excited about the training. There was a real buzz in the room, and positive partnerships were really excited about the feedback that they received. Stuart, one of our senior advisors here, shortly after doing the workshops, sent out a temperature check to all of the AITs in our networks. The first question that was asked was, I'm looking forward to. And you can see from the responses that most of the AITs were really looking forward to supporting students. and making a difference in our school, in our public schools, around supporting students with autism. The next question was, what am I nervous about? Most of our AITs, as you can see there, it was around time. They're concerned about the time that they have and how they're actually going to have an impact on all staff in their school and how they're going to influence change amongst their colleagues. And that's what our team's about, supporting them to do that. The last one was, overall I'm feeling what? And the interesting part about this was there were no words. It was, they could put in whatever words they wanted to. And over half of the AITs put in excited. And we're really excited about this initiative, where we're at, where we're going with it, and our AITs are too. So really exciting place to be working in. On your post-it notes, and I should have got you to do this first, but I got sidetracked. On your post-it notes, I would like you, either individually or as a table, to write one thing that you knew about this initiative before today, one thing that you want to know more about the initiative, and one thing as parents or carers that you are really hoping that we will achieve from this initiative. And when we get up, either for lunch or if you get up and get yourself a coffee or something for morning tea, I'd like you to post it over, just over where Candice is, on the brown sheets over there. Bronnie? One post-it note for each question. Something that you knew about the initiative before today. Something you want to know more about. And as parents and or carers, what's one thing that you are really hoping that we can achieve from this initiative? Part of the Autism Inclusion Initiative was the recruitment of a multidisciplinary team. So, as I said earlier, really excited that we now have all positions in that team field. And the idea around that was to ensure that we have got discipline-specific knowledge. So we have Rachel, who is a psychologist. We have Jamie, who is our Aboriginal project officer. We have Tara, who is our speech pathologist. Joe, who is a developmental educator. And we have Maria, who is a developmental educator also. And we have Kate, who is an OT who can't be with us here today. But the idea around that is to make sure we tap into that expertise and that discipline-specific knowledge. And the AIM team, as they are known, will work closely with the senior advisors to ensure that the training that we provide our AITs is evidence-based. It has the expertise and discipline-specific knowledge, and then it also has input from educators, so it has that educator lens as well.
Hi everyone. My name is Tara and I'm a speech pathologist. I'm equally excited to be here in the AIM team. So AIM is the Autism Inclusion Multidisciplinary Team. So of course we say AIM because it's easier. And before we introduce ourselves more deeply, what we'd like to do is show you a little video first. We are very big on hearing autistic voices in this initiative, and we would like to introduce you to Thomas, who's going to talk a little bit about language around autism, because as we probably in this room all know, language changes, and there's been some shifts, hasn't there, in the autism world about language around autism. So without any further ado, Joe will press the button and we'll show you Thomas.
Identity is inherently important to us all. By having the chance to say, "This is who I am," it's an opportunity to relate yourself to the world we live in. So why do some people identify with autism in different ways? Person-first language has been used by many people on the spectrum around the world. The general idea is that you are putting the person before the autism, but more and more people are saying that they are an autistic person. In identity-first language, People say that they are an autistic person as they feel that their diagnosis is fundamental to their identity. The main difference is people first language describes what a person has, not what a person is. Identity first language puts the disability first in the phrase and refers to the disability being an integral part of who that person is. As an autism advocate, I identify as an autistic person. To me, autism is a part of my identity, as I have lived with this condition my whole life. It has taken time for me to be accepting of who I am, and now I have reached a place in my life where I accept that my condition is a part of who I am, hence my phrasing, autistic person. For others, their autism journey is different. They may not be happy with their diagnosis, or may not want to share it with the world. That is okay, because that is their choice. If they prefer to be known as a person with autism, or by the many other terms, that is their prerogative. The most important part of someone living with autism is that they are comfortable with who they are. Due to the framing of the word autism, it is sometimes met with disabling parameters, as people are usually diagnosed after a social mishap. Older depictions of autism and some modern depictions of autism can have one-dimensional viewpoints of our condition. At the end of the day, we are the ones who are autistic, and we are the ones who should be able to define ourselves. I feel that autism isn't exactly a disability, but it is the world around us that disables us. I do feel that autism comes with a fantastic variety of strengths, and that when we tell the world about our condition, we stand tall and proud of who we are. I hope our world becomes more inclusive, giving us a better appreciation for neurodiversity, and that autistic people and non-autistic people will be treated equally and fairly. One of the ways that we can start is by owning who we are. My name's Thomas Kuzma, and I'm autistic and proud.
He made that video for Aspect in New South Wales, and that's one of the first videos that the Autism Inclusion teachers see in their 2 days of training. What I would like you to do now is have a conversation on your table about how you feel about that. Because this is an area that is changing, as Tara said, all the time. Language is such an important part of change. As language changes and we use different terms in our schools, also our knowledge grows around inclusion as well. So on your tables, I'd like you to talk to each other about the impact of that film for you. Thanks. So anyone want to share some of the things that were at your table? Yes, please. Thank you very much.
My children are 6 compared to 14 and 14. So my children aren't even aware that they are on the spectrum. So to some degree, I think that they should self-identify how they're comfortable once they're old enough to know about their disability. That was our conversation.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic.
I guess we were similar in saying it's a bit tricky when you're speaking to other people to find the right word to make sure you're not offending them, but what we do as parents is flick between person first and identity first until our children feel comfortable and make a decision for themselves.
It wasn't discussed in our group, I didn't get a chance, but I had a problem with saying that it was a disability. I don't think it's a disability. We all have our own identities, we all have our own disabilities, we have varying abilities. What happens is what is around us disables us, but we are not the disability. We are a neurotypical of what we are, as you are, as a person who has not got autism, and it's what is around us that disables us.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. I'd like to respond that I perceive it as both, that it is my identity to be an autistic person and it is who I am. And also, given the way the world is structured, it is a disability. And there are barriers that other people don't face who aren't autistic. So I feel both, that I feel comfortable being a person who has a disability or multiple disabilities and a person who's really confident in my identity as an autistic person.
I just wanted to add, so my boys are 12 and in year 7. So in year 2, another child in one of the boys' class gave a little presentation on autism and disability, and that really killed him because he said, I didn't think it was a disability. But the point I'm getting at is that other kids will probably, say what's wrong with you or, what's up with you. So that's what, I guess, why we first had the discussion with our kids, and it was around that age that they were diagnosed anyway. But then over time, it's just developed and now it's sort of autistic, that's how they identify. But that may change for them as well, like everyone else has said. Yeah, but I think just that other kids will probably bring it up anyway, and you have to have that conversation with them.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a... Yeah, thank you.
Our son is actually not diagnosed in any way, shape or form, so we don't actually have the ability to identify him as anything, which in some cases makes it harder. Sometimes, well, I don't think he really does want to identify as anything anyway. He realises that he has issues, but we don't need to label it at all, I don't think. But it's when other people ask that makes it difficult.
We keep coming... Sorry, Beck, I'll hand this off. I was just going to say we keep coming back to the power of language and how important language is and how it impacts our young people in school, labels that they might be given by other children, labels they might gain because of how... Is that what you were going to say? That they may gain just because of the way that they learn. This is why introducing what we are about with language is so important. It's about inclusion. And as you said, Vaughan, as well, your child doesn't have a label. What we hope eventually is that our schools will become more and more inclusive and labelling will become less important down the track. Beck, did you have something?
So my child was diagnosed 11 years ago, and in that time there's definitely been a shift in the culture and the fact that there is actually an autistic culture, and we have different interests, we have all sorts of different things. But I think one of the things that hit home a couple of years ago when I read it was, and this is not attacking you in any way, please don't think I am, that we may not have had a label of autism or ADHD or whatever else until we were older. But we've always had labels. So, you may have been, as a kid, you may have thought you were, a failure. Why couldn't you try harder? Why, you have anxiety and depression and things like that because you don't know that you're autistic. So you're trying to fit the system. And I think one of the things about getting that diagnosis and having a positive identity of yourself as an autistic person is that you can rewrite all of those negative things that you've ever thought about yourself and start celebrating who you are. Yes, there are always still going to be challenges, as you were saying, but whether you're labelled as a naughty kid or whether you're labelled as autistic makes such a difference in your perception of yourself.
Thanks very much. Thank you, everybody, for commenting on that. So, we said we'd introduce ourselves a little bit more deeply. I'm Jo Zeitz, and I cannot believe how lucky I am to be involved in this initiative. So my background is that I've walked alongside people on the autism spectrum for all of my work life. I met the first person I knew to be autistic when I was 17, and a friend of mine's mother asked me if I'd come along and be a mentor on a camp that was supporting young people on the autism spectrum, and I thought, oh, well, that sounds like fun, doing anything else this weekend. So I rocked up and I sat in the bus next to another 17-year-old, same age as me, and this young woman quizzed me about everything to do with popular music, then everything to do about popular fashion, nothing that I knew anything about, looked at me in a fair bit of disgust and said, "What do you know about safe sex then?" And I was like, oh my God. And then the rest of that weekend, I didn't really sleep because I was responsible for looking after a young woman who was a little younger than me, not much, who didn't look at me, didn't speak, and did not sleep the entire weekend. And I've got to say, I was totally and completely, I was exhausted, thank you, but I was also hooked because this connection with people that I just, I don't know why, but I did. So my life focus from that point on has always been around working with people on the autism spectrum, and more so as I've progressed through my work, my focus has been about belonging in school. So I've spent a lot of time prior to taking on this role working with young people who were not able to go to school because school didn't feel like it was theirs. If we said, "Why are you not going?" they'd say, "Well, that's not my school. I don't belong there." So belonging has become a really important focus in my work. How do we increase belonging? We do it through improving our inclusive practices, but predominantly by listening to our young people. So if we can hear what our young people need and say about school, then we have a chance for them to feel valued, like they are connected and they are supported in their school, and from that comes well-being, a greater sense of well-being, and with a greater sense of well-being comes an opportunity to be available to learn. And that's why I'm so excited about being here, because this Autism Inclusion Teacher role is an initiative that I believe has the best opportunity for us to be able to make some changes around how schools and school culture works for our young people. The foundation training from Positive Partnerships, every single one of those workshops had an autistic facilitator at the workshop. So strong voice, lived experience is going to come through this whole process, weave through the whole thing. Right, that's enough from me, otherwise I talk forever. I'm going to hand over to Rachel.
Hello, my name is Rachel Hughes, and I'm a psychologist. This is my first week in the department and in the AIM team, but I have been working, luckily, for more than 1 week. I've got about 10 years experience outside of the department, working still with autistic children and adults, and also often mainly also had the dual disability as well with intellectual disability. So that's my background. So really, like I said, first week here, mainly to listen and learn, really. And that's it. If that could be quick enough. Yeah.
I'd just like to say Rachel has already been an integral part of some discussions that we've already had, so you've been very, whatever that word is. You're more than that already. So as I said, I'm Tara. I'm a speech pathologist, have been for about 18 years now. My very first role as a speechy fresh out of uni was at Autism SA in the early intervention program. And so a bit like Joe, when I rocked up there, I thought, I don't even know what a group of 8 little 5-year-olds with autism might even look like. And then very quickly, I also became hooked. Actually, that was a good word. So I worked alongside an OT, a teacher and a ECW, early childhood worker, in a group of 4, and we had 8 students in a preschool program, and it was amazing, and we learnt so much so quickly. I've worked a lot in education departments in Tasmania, where I'm from originally, and also here, for the last 11 years working in children's centres, specifically the Aldinga Beach Children's Centre with the little ones under 5. And for the last 3 years, I also have had my own mobile practice, and I've worked with children ranged all the way from preschool into high school. And a lot of those kids had autism, and I was a big advocate for them to get what they needed in schools, and worked alongside teachers and families and the student in the school. So that's sort of my background. In addition to that, I have a 13-year-old daughter, Heidi, and a 9-year-old daughter, Elsie, who have both been diagnosed with autism. And so I felt very, very privileged that I already had some information under my belt, but also sort of know the roller coaster. Sort of sometimes it doesn't matter how much you know, does it? It's what you do in the moment that counts. So yeah, a lot of that going on for me as well, but really amazing to be in this space, to see how the culture can grow and change and support our kids in schools. So really looking forward to seeing how that all plays out for all of us. I also have the privilege of introducing Kate, Kate Mudge is our OT. She's not here today. She has come from Kudos, which you probably have heard of. So Kudos Services, she's been the senior clinical OT there for many years, and prior to that she was an OT in disability services. I do have to admit that my internet's not working, and she wrote out a beautiful introduction, and I'm very sorry to Kate that I can't actually let you know more about her, but I'm sure if you stay in this space watching how the AITs and the AIM team work, you'll get to know more about who Kate is as well. So now I will hand back to Jo.
So I was given the task of not just talking about myself, but also talking about Maria, who is our another developmental educator in our program. And Maria also came from Kudos as well, and has worked for 20 years in various roles in either government departments or non-government organisations. And she put a little blurb here about what DEs are. How many people feel like they've got an understanding of what a developmental educator is? So shall I read it? Not most. Okay, so what she's saying is developmental education is a self-regulating allied health profession, and it's recognised by South Australian Government and the National Disability Insurance Agency now. So that's new in the last few years, that developmental educators are now recognised by NDIS and are able to work as an allied health professional. As a disability professional, DEs apply developmental, behavioural, learning and social theories to teach functional life skills, and to undertake developmental and functional behaviour assessments and apply evidence-based interventions such as positive behaviour support. Maria says that she works from a human rights-based approach, and she's very passionate about student voice and inclusion. She believes in worth, dignity, uniqueness of all people, and the empowerment of individuals to maximise their self-determination. So I'm going to leave Maria on the front table, and you can come and have a look at her later at some stage, maybe lunchtime. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand back over to Jamie.
Okay, so I've been in this role for I think about 45 minutes now, for a very small amount of time, and I'm learning from this role, and I come in with very little experience within this field, and that was part of the reason I was really interested in this job. I have 4 children. I have a 16-year-old who's just started an apprenticeship as a butcher. So he's really enjoying that. I have a 14-year-old girl who's daughter who's in high school, just started in a new high school pretty recently. I have a 12-year-old stepson named Nehemiah. He was diagnosed with autism. He identifies as Nehemiah. And I have a son who turns 1 next week on Tuesday, who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. So I come into this role happy to be in a position to be able to learn from other families and other children as well. So I've got a bit of a guide here. So I tend to suffer from a condition called verbal diarrhoea sometimes. And when I'm given a microphone, that intensifies. So I've got a structure here to keep me behaved and in line. But so my background was in Department of Correctional Services for the last 6 years as a Cultural Programs Officer and Cultural Competence Officer. As part of that I was delivering cultural awareness across the department for the staff, but also working with prisoners to help them to identify some of the risk factors and protective factors associated with some of the positions that they were in. And before that I was at the Livingana Cultural Centre for about 13 years, Tandanya National Aboriginal Cultural Institute and Adelaide Uni in linguistics, working in linguistics. My current role is the Aboriginal Cultural Project Officer, and so as written in the job description, my key outcomes are to work within the AIM team to plan, develop and implement a culturally inclusive and safe service. Service delivery model centred on the capacity building of the ARTs in support of students with autism. Lead, plan and implement a program of work and portfolio projects that achieve the objectives of the SERU workplace and build Aboriginal approaches within the education system. Provide advice, leadership and support to develop an understanding of the cultural safety for Aboriginal people through the professional learning and practices of ARTs and autism networks. Provide cultural perspectives and expert advice to the AIM team and senior advisors, inclusive practice relating to disability and autism. Lead, plan and implement initiatives that build capacity of AIM staff to deliver professional development training that addresses the needs of Aboriginal students with autism, including tailored, supported and services. Provide support to the AIM team to ensure training is culturally inclusive, responsive and considers Aboriginal perspectives on autism. Facilitate strong connections and partnerships for the AIM team and senior advisors inclusive. Practice with agencies, community leaders and communities. Contribute to cultural responsive ways for the AIM team, senior advisors, inclusive practice and the ARTs to maintain students with autism connections to traditions and culture. Review all capacity building insights, professional learning, content for cultural responsiveness, and to help and maintain a safe and healthy working environment by proactively reporting incidents, hazards and injuries. Okay, so the children I'm advocating for are first off Aboriginal students, and as Aboriginal students, the following barriers have some of the barriers that have been identified as contributing factors to their education and or lack of. And some of that is fear of racism, negative government interventions, conflict, insecurity and instability, resources, language challenges, cultural differences, trust issues, poor health, perceptual barriers, intergenerational trauma, and the lack of knowledge of self and assimilation. And I think that's a big one. I think a man named Marcus Garvey once said that a people without the knowledge of their past, history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. And so throughout this process of me being in this role, I hope to reroute some of the, help to create programs and initiatives to reroute some of my people, some of these children, their carers, and myself as well, learn from this as well. I think if I have the same feeling about this job this time next year, I've wasted a whole year. So I think I'm very conscious that I will be taking a lot in throughout this job, and I've a lot to learn. The students I'll be working with also will be autistic students. So as well as navigating through the above mentioned barriers, the children I'll be advocating for are doing this with a significant and sacred gift. This gift is often misinterpreted and perceived as a disability, and I believe the disability in autism lies in the society's disability to see this gift for what it is. The disability is in the lack of education given to the wider communities on how they can support and nurture these gifts given to the few in the community. The disability is within the stereotypes, it's within the ignorance, but not within no medical diagnosis. And my father, he had a dog. It was a rescue dog. He had it for quite a while. He had it from, I think, the age of 3. It was in a pretty bad situation when he got it. And Goldie, her name was. I think she had another name beforehand, but with us being goldsmiths, she got the name Goldie. And it was my father's partner couldn't have children, so Goldie became the child of the house, and Goldie ate what they ate, slept where they slept. Goldie had clothes, had a cupboard full of clothes. One time I remember my stepmother coming home from work, and the car rolled down the driveway. She forgot to put the handbrake on, and it rolled down the driveway and onto the beach. And I got home from work, and there was police, there was fire brigades there was ambulance, there was a crane to get the car off the beach, and there was police that come to take photos, and the investigators were taking photos, and Goldie came out. And so they started taking photos of Goldie because they couldn't believe that she had a sports jacket on, and it was So then my stepmother was taking Goldie inside the house, getting her changed, and she'd come out with her little fake chinchilla jacket on, and the police were taking photos of that, and so Goldie was treated like she was a human, and I remember my father coming around the house and to pick me up in the car, and I'd have to argue with Goldie to get in the back, because there was no way in the world I was going to get in the back while there was a staffy sitting in the front seat. No way. Get in the back before I put you in the boot. But I'd tell her, get in the back, you know, and my father would say, can you talk to her properly, please? And he'd get really offended, you know, and she grew up as my sister. And she, I'm sure if they had her from a pup, she would have spoke words. And but Goldie knew she was a human because she was treated as that from the day my father had her. And she knew that. She didn't think that. She knew that. She was one of us. Okay, and I think a lot of Aboriginal people in general, I think a lot of what is told about us is based on what's on the news and what people see on the news, and sometimes what is said about us in general is often what our people sometimes believe. And sometimes when they believe that, they carry the characteristics of the labels that they're continually given. They carry the behaviours of the labels that they are commonly given, and so they are limited by them labels. And so I think the way we educate ourselves and the wider community is important to the futures of these children with these gifts. Thank you. Okay, so what I hope to achieve is close contact with and information sharing with non-government school organisations, including disability advocacy groups, parents, caregivers of students with autism and Aboriginal advocacy groups. From the information gathered, I hope to liaise with the AIM team and AITs to learn from them where there are further barriers and where I can support in creating positive programs to assist students with their education experience. I hope to engage with the families and communities members to gain a stronger understanding of the dynamic factors and protective factors associated with these students getting the best possible opportunities to allow them to not only survive, as that is not enough, but to thrive. And most importantly, I want to engage with the students. I want to hear their stories. I want to hear directly from them where they feel there are gaps within the system and where we can do better to assist and support them and allow them to share their own stories. And I think they're very capable of that. I think when I first started, I started here on the 6th of February in SERU, and not long after that I had a meeting with my manager and someone else, and my manager and this other person spoke about, I think it was a website that was going up, and we were talking about videos that could be placed on that website and come up, the budget come up about the videos and the website. And we spoke about the possibility of getting autistic people to come and be a part of the students, or even to do the filming or to do the creation of these resources, or to be mentored into them. And it was funny, I was told that it was me and my manager was told that it was a good idea, but they wouldn't let it happen. And I don't know who they are yet, and I'm sure I'm going to meet they. As I come from corrections, there's a lot of they in corrections, and not much happens unless without a fight in corrections, so I'm used to that. I love it. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think they're very capable. All students are very capable of telling their own story. They don't need us to tell their story. I think our role is to support them in doing that and providing the support that they need and that they ask for. And so on that, I think we're going to go into another video. And video from students. Yep. Thank you.
So this is a video of young people saying what they want schools to know.
Would you like to be more involved in the planning of your education needs?
I would love to be more involved in the planning of my education, specifically how they centre my education around my needs.
Yeah, I'd like to be more involved because I really know what I need best.
With my education, it's important that I actually have a say. Working with the teachers is all good, but if they're just taking over, it can make it hard for me to learn.
I think you definitely should be involved in what you learn, because the way that you learn is going to be different to every single person in your classroom.
What do you wish your teachers knew about your learning or accessibility needs?
I wish that they understood that I just need to type my work out more, because I'm not really the best at handwriting.
We need what we need, but we don't need a lot more.
I would like the teacher to respond to me if I came to them with a problem with a lot of understanding. I would like them to be open to communication in order to fix the problem.
What are the qualities of your favourite teachers?
The qualities of my favourite teachers are understanding, able to connect with the students well, communicate well with the students.
When they have genuine interest into what they're teaching you.
A great value for teachers to have is understanding.
Most of all my favourite teachers, they really definitely go the extra way to help, and I'm helping to teach better.
My favourite teacher is last year's teacher, because she's more kind of patient and more slow talking, so we can keep up working.
What advice would you give to your teachers?
Please, please try and learn as much about your students' needs before they even have their first class with you.
Some people need contrast colours and stuff, and that's it. If they have the knowledge on hand and they can recognise that that's all we need, it's going to make it so much easier.
Yeah, I'm mostly a normal person, but I just have those difficulties that they needed to be adapted to.
How do you think How I Learn will help you at school?
How I Learn is really helpful. I hope that a lot of kids will be able to take advantage of it, because the more we are able to advocate for ourselves, the better we will learn in our own way. And that's what How I Learn is about.
That group, How I Learn, is a fantastic resource for students and parents and schools, but it's for helping students develop their self-advocacy skills as well. You're just getting some papers on your table now. We've got a little activity for you following on from that video. You've got the top page, which is the one that I want you to think about first, and this is about partnerships with schools, because what we know is that if there is a positive partnership between home or parents and school, and there is a positive partnership between student and school, that there are greater outcomes in learning for our young people, for our students. So your first page says to you, your first page asks you to consider what strengths do learners bring to the partnership? And you've got 5 spots there. I want you to think about what are the strengths the students bring to the partnership, the school teacher-parent partnership. And the next one is, given the chance, what advice would your child give their teacher? So I want you to do this on the table together. You've got 1 to do together on your tables. 1 sheet. The one after that, if you get through that one, you might get caught up in conversation, discussion about that one. The other is asking about your strengths, the strengths that you bring to the partnership, and also what strengths do the teachers bring. And the reason why we are focusing on strengths is because we've got an opportunity to do things better and right here, so we want to hear about what works, what is working for our young people, so that we can get these messages across to our AIT teachers. Okay, you have about 10 minutes for this to discuss. I'm interested in some comments or feedback from people. We would really like to collect those up if people are happy for us to have them. But can I have some comments from tables about that activity? What are some things that you put down? Comments if you want instead. Anyone want to say something about that exercise. You can report back on what your child would like school to know or what advice they'd give. Does anyone want to start with that? Yes, thank you.
Clear instructions is clear ideas and clear instructions, and not too many things at once. I've got a slight issue with maths at the present moment, and so I have to relearn all my maths, all my Year 10 maths. And she just comes home and she goes, he's put up all these equations, and then he says we don't need to know them. And so it's just not clear. Yeah.
I almost wanted to go a little bit big picture on it. It's one thing what kids need, but I think what's really important is that they're asked what they need, because a lot of our children are going to spend their lives needing to direct care, and to know that they're the ones in charge of that. They're the, their support workers are there to assist them, and it's up to them to direct that. So I think that can start at school, and it's a great opportunity to build those self-advocacy skills.
Just in relation to what the children want from their teacher, just to make it appropriate so that their goals are going above and beyond. So not that you're dumbing it down for them, making it easy, actually get the child to excel and go above where they can, and just not across the board. And making it fun and relevant to them. I think that's essential. And just a little side note, I think with some kids that get homework, we've got a lot on at home as well. So kind of schools for work, homes for fun and other activities. Just a little side note, I'm pretty sure that's what my board want me to put the message across.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you very much. When my kids were at school, I really wanted to try and create International No Homework Week. And then other people said maybe make it a month. I thought perhaps we could just make it across the board. No homework. Anyone else want to comment?
I think I'm going to get a few nods in the room from this one. We discussed that our children are often not invited to parties and things like that because of their differences. So we thought perhaps within a school setting, it's an educational setting, but with the social side, just provide opportunities for our kids to lead amongst their peers and be chosen for some things occasionally that they may not necessarily be qualified for, but just not as a token, but just to assimilate and help with those relationships. That would be really good.
What you're talking about there again is being valued and a sense of belonging, and this school is for me, and I'm as valuable as everybody else in this space, and birthday parties have a lot to answer for. I have to say, absolutely, I remember that myself. Any other comments from the floor? What about one of the other ones there? What strengths do your young people bring to the partnership?
I think fundamentally they know what works for them and what doesn't work for them. They know what they can accept and what they can be flexible on and what they can't be. And we need to firstly respect that, but then also look at, okay, how do we get to educate them within those parameters? And understanding that not everything's going to work for everybody.
Did anyone get to the strengths parents bring, strengths teachers bring? Does anyone want to comment? Yeah, thank you.
Simply the deep knowledge that we have of our own child, communicating that to the teachers and the carers that are involved, that's paramount to any relationship with said people and also for the child and the parents.
Perfect. Thank you very much, because that is an incredible connection to the next thing I wanted to highlight on your table. What you have on there is a communication tool. So this is something that the teachers were given at the end of their Positive Partnerships workshops on day 2. They do a whole section on working together in partnership with parents, and this tool is about finding the best way to communicate between home and school. So teachers, the AITs have a copy of this, but also at Positive Partnerships they have 2-day parent workshops, and I would suggest you keep your eye out for when those are on in South Australia, because you will get the same information as the teachers and the parent section. You'll see this too, but the point of this is if communication isn't working particularly well, then being able to use a tool like this where you can talk about what's the best form of communication that you like? What works for the teacher? How can we get these two, the partnership working well by getting the communication more effective? So you'll see on here that it's got how often we're going to communicate this way and what the next steps or dates are. Taking this to a meeting and asking the school or the teacher to be able to work with you around what communication works. Some people might want a text message in the morning if things haven't worked well at home, or you might want communication back in a particular form at the end of the day, or you might want a meeting once a week or so on. So it's a way of negotiating around the communication between home and school. So this is a part of the focus from the foundation training that the AITs have been doing. I think that's us done.
Our lovely Bron here, who sends you out the minutes and the agendas and all of that, thought potentially people might like the link to the Positive Partnerships website sent out where you can access the things that Jo was talking about. Yep, okay, we'll organise that. Today we are lucky enough to have our very own AIT. Nick Scrobb wears many hats at Lockleys North Primary School. He's the assistant principal. He looks after wellbeing and he's also their AIT. So he's going to talk to us firsthand as an AIT, what's going on in his school and his experience so far. So please welcome Nick.
My name's Nick Scrobb and I'm the Autism Inclusion Teacher at Lockleys North Primary School, along with my role as Assistant Principal in Wellbeing and Learning Support. Prior to that, I worked as a wellbeing leader in a school, and prior to that, I worked as a behaviour coach in support services in the Para Hills Regional Office. And my teaching journey started actually in an intensive English language centre, which was really special. And then I transitioned to junior primary, and I had a really special thing happen this morning. I ran into parents of a child that I taught when I was in year 1, and that's Vaughan and Mylene. So that made me really emotional, actually, because I taught their child when he was in year 1, and he's almost ready for high school now. So it's actually starting to make me realise how old I'm getting, which is not so good, but that's okay. You know, starting teaching is such a rewarding thing, and starting from where I was as a teacher, my mum described it when I was teaching junior primary as kindergarten cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so did my deputy at the time when she saw me the first time in the classroom. So I believe I've come a long way since then and into this role now. And it was also special seeing another parent, Bonnie, from our school in Lockleys North as well. So shout out to you, Bonnie, as well. Thank you for coming. Yeah, look, I've come here today to talk about what the role involves, the supports that we're getting as autism inclusion teachers. I feel so privileged to be supported by the AIM team and just value all of the experiences they bring in supporting us in the role. I feel really lucky to have the SERU working alongside us as well and bringing their expertise and leading out this groundbreaking initiative. Anyone else who was involved within the department as well, my sincere thanks as well, because I think it's so important being in a school, having this groundbreaking initiative. As one of the, Emily Burke said, the Assistant Minister, we are actually leading in this space. There is no one else who's doing it, and it's really special to be a part of it. So the journey so far this year has involved some online professional development, which was organised by Positive Partnerships, which is a federal initiative by the federal government. It's a project that's being rolled out, and it was really special to actually be part of that, because my background is in behaviour support, but building my capacity in understanding the evidence base around supporting autistic students was really rewarding for me, and I learned a lot as well in that space in those 2 days. And there was lots of online professional development that was offered to us prior to us attending. When we attended the training at the Education Development Centre, we got to meet all the other autism inclusion teachers who were in our network. So I'm in the Flinders Park 2 network, and so I got to meet a lot of teachers within that network, which was really rewarding as well, to connect with everyone. And one of the big highlights from that day, there was lots of good professional development, but one thing that stuck out from one of our facilitators who he identified as autistic, and he said, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And I think that will stay with me for a very long time. I think that was so poignant and just it moved me when he said that. So far this term, just to catch you guys up to speed, we do have regular network meetings with our IT leads. So shout out to Bronnie, she's the lead in my network, and I feel really grateful to have her there. So we've had 2 so far, I believe, and we've got our final one coming up as well. And the first initial one, we had, it was pretty much all of the AITs there, and it was more of a welcome and what the scope of the role is, what's not in the scope of the role, because I think those things are really important as well. And I think that clarification will come as the role develops as well. It will become more and more apparent. And I think it's an evolving role as well. So I think we are the space we're in is sort of as much unknown as it is for you as the community as well, because we're learning as we're going through the process as well. The communication that I've had with my school involved a lot of the communication that was available on the department's platform. So we use a lot of that to communicate through our school newsletter, through our main central communication tool as well, so the community knew who was appointed into the role, what the role sort of is going to involve, and what the requirements of the role are. Keeps sliding, yep. So this is very logistical, so just some next steps that we're working towards. There is some, after the Positive Partnerships training, we are required to complete post-workshop activities, so we've got a bit of homework to do. And then we've got the Autism Friendly Planning tool, which was provided to us to complete as well. And then looking forward into the year, projecting to end of 2023, we've still got 10 network meetings, and I'm sure other things will arise as we move through the role as well. So just unpacking the 2 days a little bit for you, there were, it's really hard, when I thought about it, it's really hard to synthesize what we did because there was so much, but I will give you short snippets of what the sessions actually included. So there were 3 sessions across the 2 days, so 6 in total. And look, day 1 just involved us becoming more comfortable in the role, getting comfortable with the facilitators who ran the training. We were exposed to one of my favourite sessions was session 2, which was connecting how we connect the students' community to them. And when we initially thought about community, we thought cultural background and community in that sense, but it's much, then we thought about it from a different lens, and we spoke about, well, community is maybe a club that they have in a school. So ensuring that there are opportunities for them to participate in different parts of the community where their interests are valued and highlighted. And then we spoke about in the wider community, how can they connect with the community in that space? So that was really a really rewarding and interesting session. We spoke about the social and communication skills. So how that's different in young people, and particularly we spoke about it in reference to the assessments that is used to diagnose autism, and they link that back to the DSM criteria that's used to diagnose autism as one of the main areas that they look for. So that was really, really good as well. So I think the first day set the scene for us in terms of, you know, all the logistical things, and a bit clinical as well, how is autism diagnosed, what are the 2 things they look for, look, we spoke about, community, culture, and it was just setting the scene for the rest of the professional development, so that was really rewarding. Day 2, we looked at sensory processing, self-care and independence for children. We looked at mental health, wellbeing and behaviour, and we looked at working in partnership with families and students. The one I found really interesting was, and what I really like to see with my behaviour coach background, the fact that they had a functional needs lens in the training. meaning that they had, ABC data templates. So to encourage a very scientific approach to building skills in children was really rewarding, because I think part of our roles in the school is if we're supporting children who have skills that they haven't built yet, I think a big part of our role is to identify what skills need to be learnt through data collection, through the functional needs lens, and then make personalised plans for those children to build those skills. So that was included in the training. I was really glad to see that, because that is the most evidence-based research we have into that field as well. And then the last one around working in partnership with families and students, I think is probably the most important part, because that is probably the core of your role in terms of supporting that student, creating that team around child approach that includes the family. So look, lots of different great parts of the training, and look, we hope to use that knowledge in our role going forward. Next steps for our school, one thing that really stood out for me was this planning tool, and we thought, how can we use it to support our students in our school in a meaningful way? And within this tool, it breaks it down really nicely to identify and unpack the student's profile. So what's good about it is you can use it as a transition tool, you can use it as a planning tool. So for example, if we're looking at the area of adjustments, which is the last column, what adjustments need to be put into place for that student, a parent can use this tool to meet with the teacher at the end of the year, so when the child transitions, and it can be used as a transition tool so the teacher next year knows what adjustments need to be in place for that child, but it also helps in the conversation at the beginning of the year if that tool is passed on. So this was a really fantastic tool which we would like to start using at our school to support transition for students with disabilities as well. So that was really a big highlight as well for me. The positive partnerships, I'm just going to read out to you how they define it. So this is the planning tool that responds to the diversity wheel. We developed this tool to help summarise all relevant information about an individual and share it with those that need it. This planning tool will capture the characteristics of your young person, the impacts of these characteristics, as well as strategies and adjustments. The planning tool may guide priority areas for support at school and home, and it is important that this tool also captures strengths of the individual. The planning tool can be completed by a team of people, including family members and the individuals themselves. And that's just a larger version of the planning tool, but that is our next steps as a school. So that is what we'd like to work within that scope, and hopefully use it to help our students. That's all from me.
I just wanted to say, because you've come out of school and to be with us today, and so we really appreciate the fact that you've taken time out from your role, which is a very important role because it's supporting the students and families and children. Thank you so much for that.